Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today is Thursday, June the 12th, and I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:07 p.m. And if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, welcome, everyone. Looks like we have our proposed budget put together here, and Natasha put these binders here together for us. But I want to start with our budget officer, Mr. Fitzgerald, to go ahead and deliver the budget message for us.
2025-26 fiscal year budget message. Over the past 2 years, county leadership has undertaken an assessment of the financial health of the county. This has been complicated by finance office personnel turnover. As we examine the past actions of previous administrations, our duty is to find and correct its faults through the consistent efforts of our current administration and department heads. This budget was prepared using the assistance of a certified public accountant and input from county leadership. Revisions are expected in the coming months to ensure accuracy in projected revenues and expenditures. However, I am confident in saying that this budget reflects clear progress in a positive direction. This budget combined is a total of $64,276,759, which includes all revenues and expenditures for county departments for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. This is $239,023 less than the budget for the previous year. The total budget, not including road fund reserves, is $26,732,761. The Curry County budget is made up of several different types of funds, including but not limited to general fund used for essential county services such as the county assessor, county clerk, district attorney, treasurer, juvenile, and veterans. Road fund used for road operations, maintenance, and vehicle services. Special revenue funds, including the sheriff's office, county clerk records, transient lodging tax revenue, and solid waste services. Towers fund, used for the operation, maintenance, and improvement of communications towers infrastructure critical to public safety. Fair fund, used for operation, maintenance, repair, and capital improvements at the county fairgrounds and event center. Community development. This fund has many sub-funds such as building, planning, surveyor, economic development and tourism, parks, veteran services, and aquatic safety. Federal grants and state grants. These two funds are used to manage grant funding from state and federal agencies. Administrative Services Fund. This fund consists of departments that act as internal service providers for county departments such as finance, legal counsel, payroll and human resources, IT, building repair and maintenance, and the Board of Commissioners office. Reserve funds. These include PERS and unemployment self-insurance sub-funds that offset potential financial liability incurred by the county due to PERS and unemployment costs. Revenue. County revenues are made up of federal and state funding, property taxes, fees for county services, and grants. Additional funding for the 2025-26 fiscal year was found and delivered. While only the biggest achievements in this regard will be discussed in this message, our elected officials, department heads, and staff have worked hard to find additional funding and reduce their reliance on the general fund. Curry County's permanent tax rate is .5996 per $1,000 of assessed value. This is the amount of Curry County's citizens' tax money that is levied to support the provisions of county government and does not include the additional taxes levied by special districts such as schools, hospitals, libraries, fire districts, etc. The county itself collects only approximately 7 cents per dollar of total property taxes paid. The estimated tax revenue for the 2025-26 fiscal year for the county is $2,008,500. O&C revenue. With the county not receiving any SRS funds this year, we elected to receive O&C timber funds in the sum of $944,000. This has afforded us to cover the annual increase staffing costs, including PERS, cost of living adjustments, and regular salary step increases for all departments. TLT revenue. In early 2025, the Board of Commissioners approved a 3% increase in the percentage of transient lodging tax charged to lodging establishments such as hotels, campgrounds, and short-term rentals. This increase is estimated to raise an additional $700,000 for the county general fund and an additional $1.6 million for tourism and promotion uses. To support the economic revitalization of our county, a grant program is being initiated by the Curry County Economic Development Department. This program will use TLT funds legally restricted to tourism and promotion expenses to bolster the efforts of local businesses and events. Expenditures. Budget expenditures generally fall into 5 categories with few exceptions. Personnel services, which includes employee costs such as salary, health insurance, workers' compensation insurance, PERS, and other related expenses. Materials and services, those are costs associated with doing business such as professional contracted services, office supplies, equipment, liability insurance and property insurance, postage, etc. Transfers out of one fund into another fund. Capital outlay, used to acquire, maintain, and/or improve long-term assets such as facilities, equipment, and vehicles. Debt services, used for regular payments on loans. Personnel. The proposed budget provides for standard progressive step increases for employees not presently at the top of their position class range and for the cost of living adjustments, COLA, required by collective bargaining agreements for union-represented employees and voluntarily provided to non-represented employees. No layoffs were required for the 2025-26 fiscal year, largely due to last year's monumental effort to ensure that staffing expenses were proportional to available revenue. For the majority of departments, personnel costs this year was calculated based on a 7.5% increase from the previous year. This is one value that must be adjusted in the coming months subsequent to adoption. This year, positions were created for an investigator in the district attorney's office, a community resource officer, and an animal control/civil deputy in the sheriff's office, civil/criminal/patrol budget, and 1 additional position in planning. This means the county was able to add 4 additional positions that do not require any additional general fund resources. As calculated based on a full-time employee FTE equivalency, the total number of positions, both filled and vacant this year, is 112. Compared to last year's 108. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. I know we have Zoom. Should be hooked up to receive an additional message from our CPA, Eric Kaitola. He was going to go over some more details and a further summary for us on this proposal that was put together. We able to get that pulled up at all, Natasha? Okay.
I do want to just acknowledge, and I'm sure Eric will probably acknowledge the same, the work that Rabia, Nick Vicino, our treasurer, Natasha, Eric, Julie, have all been putting into this has been pretty phenomenal. There's been some real late nights here, and they pulled it off, and so we're proud of them for being able to do it. There he is.
Hi, Eric. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
Eric, this is Commissioner Trost. I'd just like to thank you for all the work that you've been putting into this year's budget, being willing to take this on and get this prepared has been quite an ordeal, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
So would you like to provide us with a further summary and some more details regarding our proposed budget?
Yeah, I mean, the budget process I go through normally is much different than this one. I was telling Rabia that I didn't get to start working on it until the first week of May. And the other 3 budgets I was working on were almost done then. So a lot of the stuff that I normally go through to prep a budget, I wasn't able to do. Some big things being estimating what the ending of 25 was going to be, talking to directors and asking them what their requests were for the following year, asking them what they thought they were going to spend at the end of 25. I really had to strip back a lot of the stuff I normally do just to get a balanced budget in front of you today. And without Nick and Rabia's help, it wouldn't have happened. So yeah, the three of us worked really well together along with some other people to get what you have in front of you. It's not perfect, but it is balanced. It's pretty much just the same as last year with an increase in personnel costs. Again, a budget is like an estimation, right? So things that need to be fine-tuned going forward can be done with supplemental budgets if need be. So that's where I'm at. That's, you know, the process we went through.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Do you guys have any further discussion or anything that?
I have a prepared kind of statement, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So, this fiscal year, we operated with a sustainable budget for the first time in over a decade. With back-to-back levies failing, one that was county-led, one that was citizen-led, it is clear that the people are directing us to find a sustainable solution to funding shortages. The 2024-2025 fiscal year was the largest reduction in budget since 2008. The greatest service level reductions came in planning and in patrol. We raised the TLT tax from 7 to 10% as previously stated, providing an additional $700,000 annually of revenue that is coming in by way of tourism and not property tax. Now, we understand that the majority of that is restricted funds, and there is legislation right now at the state to potentially remove those restrictions, which would be incredible for rural counties like ours to be able to allocate those towards more general funded obligations. But as it sits right now, that's not the case. They're still restricted, except for 30% of them, which we were able to leverage for some of these new roles. It is unclear how service levels in patrol were impacted because statistical information hasn't been forthcoming. We do know that patrol hours were reduced from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and response protocols were limited to the most life-threatening and in-progress incidents. The Budget Committee allocated $1.18 million in road funds and $1,645,606 overall towards civil, crim, and patrol. The sheriff used these funds to fund the following: 3 road deputies, 1 road sergeant, 1 road lieutenant, 1 timber sergeant, 1 marine deputy, 1 admin assistant, and 1 civil deputy. Last year, this budget committee offered an additional community resource officer to handle transient calls, a school resource officer to handle school-related and juvenile incidents, and animal control who could double as a civil server. These additional resources would have been force multipliers for the road patrol and supervisors, taking incredible amounts of low-level calls off their plates, allowing them to focus on responding to higher priority calls to be there to provide backup. These assets were declined upon offer. It has been said that the lack of coverage, the current lack of coverage, is because we don't have staff. We are short in the jail, and we have patrol deputies working to cover. All of this is true. However, it is not a complete picture. The sheriff also created a response protocol that limited any available deputy to respond only to the most severe in-progress crimes. The challenges related to short staffing are issues that lie within the organizational leadership of the sheriff's office. Our job is to provide resources and identify what those resources are intended to fund. The sheriff is responsible for hiring, firing, and the overall culture of the Curry County Sheriff's Office. We are not in the business of excuse making. It has never been more clear that the public is requiring government to stop overspending, become more accountable, and show the public what is really being provided. In other words, we have to show our work and show our worth. This budget, we are equipped with more knowledge on our capabilities and our responsibilities. For instance, we now know that the BOC has the authority to staff each department through the budget process as we see responsible within our financial capabilities. This year, we're staffing the sheriff with the following patrol resources: 5 road deputies, 1 forest patrol, 1 marine deputy, 1 community resource officer, 1 animal control civil servant. In addition to this, the county will fund an investigator in the DA's office. This will be a sworn officer who will follow up on investigations, and an additional force multiplier for patrol as well, as this will take more off their shoulders. Now, I want to be clear. What I just mentioned does not include the civil portion, the civil deputy, admin assistant, etc., in the full civil crim patrol budget. The civil crim patrol budget is actually increasing. As you see, the civil crim patrol budget will be increasing from last year about $80,000. Okay, so This staffing has the capacity to increase patrol coverage from the current operation of 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, should the sheriff choose to. This staffing option was offered to the sheriff during last budget cycle and could have been utilized to provide higher levels of service. It is also an example of how collaboration and idea sharing can benefit our community. This year's plan will require $1.229 million in road funds as opposed to last year's $1.18. We will use road fund reserves, the interest on road fund reserves as opposed to principal, to ensure that this is a sustainable model moving forward. In summary, the increase in annual staff roll-up costs will be covered by O&C funds. We are adding 4 positions, 3 of which are in public safety, 2 in the sheriff's office, 1 in the DA's office. All of these positions will be funded with sustainable dollars to preserve their roles in the future. We are focused on providing additional public safety resources countywide with the hopes that the sheriff will emphasize some of those resources in Harbor, our largest unincorporated area in Oregon. The addition of the CRO to handle transient calls, animal control to deliver civil service, and an investigator in the DA's office will be force multipliers for patrol, freeing them up to focus on addressing criminal activity should the sheriff choose to use them in this way. Economic growth and sustainability is a possibility. The BOC is working with the treasurer to create an investment strategy that can increase our interest rates from 4.6% to 7 to 8% annually. What does that equate to? It equates to an increase in $1.6 million revenue each year, totaling $3.2 million that can be allocated towards general funded services, potentially bringing our financial resources to a level that hasn't been realized in Curry's history, and making us financially stable without the need to ask our citizens for more taxes. This will require being disciplined with the county treasury, being sound in our fiduciary responsibilities, and budgeting that maximizes outcomes with the expectation that we show our work. And that's what I have prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to give kind of an overview. 95% of the budget is status quo from last year. The changes that are being made are the ones that are being discussed today. Overall, it's a net increase in human resources being out in our community, which as identified earlier, at minimal increase in overall costs moving forward.
Do you guys have any discussion or question or anything along those lines as of right now, based off of what you've heard?
Not yet. I noticed there's some new formats here, so trying to digest exactly everything that's coming at us at the moment. My one concern that's been in the back of my mind, it is nice that we had that O&C money come in to, basically cover all closer. Offset increases in personnel costs. Not looking at this yet, I don't know if we have been able to have any carryover budget or if we're maxing out everything coming in again, which just continues to possibly put us in a situation where next year ONC money doesn't come, or 2 years down the road, ONC doesn't come because of new well, it won't be a new administration yet, but, you know, as those political pieces disappear, where that leaves us in 2 years.
Right. Can I hit this a little bit?
Yeah.
So, so I think that what Nick is saying is, and for the public that maybe doesn't understand, is SRS and ONC funds have kind of always been last-minute hits. We used to be PILT. And so I think right now with the executive order that was put out by the Trump administration to log, they were directly discussing, they were talking about the ONC lands. Those are the Federal Reserve timberlands. And we will see an increase in ONC funds going forward. This year, we saw 944,000, but I think in the future, we're going to see increases because they're going to increase the yield and board feet being delivered as we get a new BLM director. But the question is always going to loom, what happens when that administration changes and those monies change course, right? So, you know, we have been exploring an alternative plan, and to Commissioner Hollinger's credit, he has been working diligently to follow up on this plan. And I'll just give so in one of our DCO meetings a few months ago, we were discussing strategies in terms of resources. And I said, hey, why don't we go to the federal government? Trump wants to log. Why don't we go to the federal government and say, hey, lease us some land, and we will start a timber production department. And let's start with 80,000 acres of your 600,000 acres in federal lands, merchantable timber. Well, to Commissioner Hollinger's credit, he took that idea, ran with it, and last week had a meeting with the Deputy Secretary of Ag under Trump, and I'll let you tell how that went.
Sure. Yeah, so we had put together kind of a draft proposal of what we think a plan would look like if we could get some sort of agreement in place with the Department of Agriculture and the Forest Service, which it's kind of weird. There's two different agencies that oversee our forests. So you have the Department of the Interior, which oversees the BLM, which oversees our ONC. But then you have the Department of the Agriculture, which oversees the U.S. Forest Service. But also under that Forest Service spectrum, there are some Forest Service lands that if they harvest any timber on those lands, that also gets contributed to ONC as well. So you have two different agencies overlooking our forests, but Department of Agriculture is where we needed to go to directly and ask them to see if they're even open to this idea. And you know, with Trump's executive order that he signed back in, I want to say it was early March, for expediting sustainable yield in our forests to ramp up timber production, we kind of thought to ourselves, well, why don't we kind of just ask for the home run for our county and put a good plan together, pick some of the Forest Service plots within our county that we think would be most suitable.
We're historically merchantable timber.
Correct. So this is not old growth or anything like that. This is all stuff that's been repopulated over the past. And anyway, so we presented this proposal, like Jay said, to the undersecretary and their aides for the Department of Agriculture back in Washington, D.C. just a few days ago. And they're all in support of moving forward with this. And their comments were, well, we've been trying to kind of figure out a plan like this on our own, but we haven't really been able to put all the pieces together, and we don't know exactly where in the country, we wanted to start with this first. So you guys have a great idea, a great proposal. We like it, we support it, and we want to move forward with it. So anyway, so I've now been in touch. They put me in touch with the deputy director for the Pacific Northwest for the Forest Service to set up and we've got a meeting set up next week with her in order to see how we can put the contract together, what is needed for us to be able to push forward with the plan and what they need from us as well. That was great news for us, and really we're going to kind of be the model county in the nation going forward for a plan like this that other counties in the Pacific Northwest and other West Coast or Western states can use for their rural counties as well in order to boost their general funds and their resources. And so this is a huge moment for us going forward. And so as it continues to keep playing out, I'll continue to keep you informed. But this could be the game changer we're looking for.
I just want to clarify that the county would be administering the timber program. We're not going to be getting in the forestry business. We're gonna be it'll be local industry that would be working with us as on-site managers and harvesters and so forth. So it would be a way to boost the economy for the county and also really broaden the
Scope of our services as well.
Yep.
But to your point, Nick, I think that if we're not able to get something like this in place in that time and the fluctuation of ONC funds happen, then we are back to the drawing board of having some really difficult conversations. I mean, and I think that's always a reality that we're going to be facing in rural government. And the best that we can do is put together a fantastic investment plan with the resources we do have so that we can try to maximize our sustainable yield on those, our ROI, right? And put us in a better financial position going forward.
Yeah, because if our personnel costs increase was almost $1 million this year, ONC covered it. If we have an additional next year,
Yeah.
where are we?
Now
I'm glad to hear that there are opportunities out there, especially if, like talking earlier, if TLT unlocks that to generate more revenue. But I guess just for the here and now, I'm always a little concerned on potential monies versus actuals.
Sure. The one thing I do want to bring up, and I don't know if this is, so tomorrow we have, today we're getting our books, the budget message, kind of an overview. The goal was to be able to have time to digest these books. So my question to this group is, and to the chair, is would you rather have the weekend to digest these books and meet on Monday to go over and do the approvals? Hopefully we can get it done. If we couldn't get it done, we could schedule an early meeting Tuesday before our BOC meeting to where we would need to be adopting. I mean, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, and I know our meeting was scheduled for 1:00 tomorrow, and that's not much time to really go through all of this and digest everything. So my suggestion would be to wait until Monday, if you guys are all right with that.
It's really about your guys' calendars.
Right.
Yeah, I need more than 12 hours to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Just curious that when we left in July, the recollection was you budgeted a reserve of like 70,000 or something, or last year's budget, or this current year budget. Where's our reserve now? Do you know?
A contingency?
Yeah.
Eric, do you know how much we have in contingency?
Altogether,
Well, in the budget's contingency, I guess, in the general funding contingency?
I can tell you what the general fund is really quick, but there's contingency in every one of the funds. Well, I should say there could be contingency in every one of the funds, but memory says the general fund has the biggest one. I'm pulling the file open right now.
Do you have an estimate, Nick?
It's figures, but I wouldn't know until it's my head.
Okay.
I was working on that on Monday, but you would know more. I just sent the figures.
In the general fund is 987,000 of contingency.
Is he talking about figures? This coming budget, or is he talking about now?
He's talking about, that's in this proposed budget, Eric?
That's correct.
I'm just curious what the reserve fund is now. Cash wise, I mean, we had set aside, I think it was like 60 or 80,000, really low.
Yeah.
Around 100 and then something cut into it.
Yeah,
So,
I was just curious where we sit with that, what kind of contingency, what do we have?
We can look at that and have Rabia get
We can
the
get-
numbers.
As I recall, we had, everybody did pretty well, but there were, people did come in a little bit low, so some of that, we did eat into that a little bit, as I recall, but it was surprising how well everybody stayed within the guardrails.
Monday's good for me.
Monday 1? Okay, we'll continue with that then. And
Good.
do we need to tentatively put something on for Tuesday morning next week?
Yeah, in case we have
We're gonna
more
have to-
discussion on Monday?
Yeah, because we'd have to post that to that meeting date, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
And
that will make Natasha's life a lot better. I'm open all Tuesday morning,
yeah, I am too. So what works for you guys?
like 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, in case we gotta go a little longer.
Yeah.
Okay? All right,
Yeah, Tuesday at 10.
Tuesday 10? Okay.
So Monday will be Monday at 1, correct?
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Yes. Yep, we'll cancel tomorrow.
I guess I've got something I wanted to just bring up.
All right, Dave?
Just the elephant in the room, if you will, from an outsider's perspective, somebody who's new to this whole thing, the tension between the Sheriff's Department and the Board of Commissioners. From somebody who I'm on the volunteer fire department in Langlois, and so we're highly reliant on Sheriff's Department calls. We have no support, and obviously I've been reading things in the paper, and there's an incredible amount of tension between commissioners and from a perspective of something that I care deeply about, and I've got a family member on the Sheriff's Department, Jared Gray, and I know what I know about Sheriff Ward, and people, the support of him. And so I feel like I would like to know, as part of the Budget Committee, one thing I kind of regret last year was not further going to bat and really understanding why we didn't pull a little bit more money out of a fund that we maybe had available to use for them. Why? I guess I'm not a politician, you know. I'm good with people, and I understand the human element of things a lot. So I find myself really like just wondering how to bridge that gap between a hugely supported sheriff and a board of commissioners who I believe is trying to do the absolute best for the county. I guess I have repeated questions in my mind when you have an authorized $20 million fund that we need for the roads, but authorized to use for the sheriff's department, for the governor, why we're going through such turmoil within a county. It feels like such a division, right? It's kind of the same thing that happens in our country. It feels like there's a middle ground that we could reach, and I would love to understand more fully from that perspective, I guess, of what we're doing here. Like, we're getting our budget balanced, but at what cost to our citizens, to us as firefighters, feeling like we need to carry a weapon to all fire calls because we don't have the support. So it's a bigger than a financial issue for me. So I really want to just kind of get that elephant in the room just out and say, that's what's on my mind, and feels like I just want to understand more.
Yeah. Completely understandable. I think that probably the vast majority of the public is in the same, would love to understand more as well. And to say that it's that there's a simple answer to that question would not be serving that question any justice. So, you know, I think we need to separate the two issues, the financial issue and the relationship issue, right? Although some will say that the relationship issue is born out of the financial issue, the cut in the budget is what severed the relationship. And I don't know if that is fully true, right? So separating what we would describe the tension from the actual budget thing. The budget scenario was born out of there was an incredible amount of spending occurring on the road fund reserves, right? So not in the distant past, the road fund reserves were closer to $40 million, right? We've spent $18 million in road fund reserves in the sheriff's office since 2013. Began spending in 2013. Now, in 2013, the money being spent in the sheriff's office from road fund reserves from 2013 to 2016 was on the basis that it would be given back as a loan. Now, there's close to $5 million that were given in those time periods that have not been repaid. In 2017, the legislation was able to get a letter signed by the governor that said, hey, we can use road fund reserves for road patrol only, right? And so then that whole process started. Now, the reason we were, and I think that if last year's motto was essentially, the theme was, we have two financial cliffs. One financial cliff is a general fund cliff, because general fund was being propped up with one-time monies, right? The ARP funds, LATCF funds that were all dried out, that were being used to support the jail. And then road funds were also on a collision course of going to zero quickly, right? Now, hitting just the road funds, there's two things that we had to address. How much we were spending on road patrol, and also how much we were spending in roads. Because not only were we spending $3.4 million annually out of there for road patrol, but we also had an issue with our roads department increasing their spending at the same time. So annually, normally, they were spending about $6 million on the operations a year, budgeted, which, you know, if we were going to make it rough, it was like $2 million in staffing, $2 million in materials, and then $2 million in projects.
Just the road funds.
Yeah.
The road.
That's road department.
Historically.
Well, during this time period, between 2020 and 2023, the road department was increasing their spending at a point where they were actually spending close to $10 million annually, so they increased theirs by $4 million. At the same time, we were budgeting $3.4 million for the sheriff's patrol, right? So we were net over $7 million coming out of the road funds that was normally not being coming out. And had that continued, obviously that's not sustainable. So we took a couple of different courses of redirection. We pulled back the road fund, we pulled back road department spending to its normal $6 million historical budgeted amounts. And then also we had to say, hey, we got to pull back what we can sustainably put into patrol. And that's when we chose to use the interest on the road funds, because we could do that over a long term, right? We could those are reliable dollars, as opposed to spending principal. Here's the thing. Had we taken this strategy 10 years ago when there was $40 million, and we would have the interest to be able to have a fully funded department. But that strategy wasn't implemented.
and it was just spent. And it got to the point where we had to say, hey, we can't continue this route. Now we have the opportunity or the responsibility to try to get back to that the best we can and as quickly as we can, right? Which is why we're discussing a more diversified investment portfolio. For instance, all of our money is wrapped up in what's called the LGIP pool, which is the local government investment pool. Most counties have closer to 10% of their money in that pool, and the other 90% is being invested in different securities that have higher yields, so that they're having more money returned to their county for operations. We need to step up our game. And so that's kind of the goal going forward. Where we're at right now is a product of spending a lot of one-time money for operations, number one. That probably was one of our biggest mistakes. Using ARP funds and LATCF funds to fund positions, knowing that that money was one-time money, was a mistake. That money should have been spent towards infrastructure and a long-term investment. Then we could have been focused more towards a sustainable budget as opposed to having a paper floor fall out from underneath us because we knew those monies were going to dry up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that is the most condensed answer to the question that you asked, because that question it's extremely complex. Now, it can be, I think, a fairly simple answer. And I think the fairly simple answer is we can get back to collaborating.
I think that should be our common goal ground this year, obviously, is
Certainly.
hope, that of hope. Because obviously, in your speech, in your prepared statement, a lot of stuff needed to be changed, and we needed to kind of get to the point where we're desperate, right? Desperate times call for desperate measures. But a unified feeling of hope that we can restore this, that a very popular and well-supported sheriff gets what he needs to do what the county needs of him, and we all come together. I think that message of hope could go a long ways to unifying us as a county again.
I'm glad you brought it up, because that needed to be talked about, and that needs to be stated. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that does not want that.
There's one other thing, though, that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, is that, last year was our nadir, which, we were the ultimate, we were at the very bottom. Well, other municipalities and other agencies and other counties around the state that's happening now. And within our own county, we're having, Gold Beach and Port Orford, for example, are struggling. So when you're talking about collaboration, I'd like to ask that everybody keep their minds open, because those organizations need help too, and they're within our county, and it's something that you should think about.
And here's the reality. Where we are headed are unprecedented times, right? We have school districts that are running out of money. We have cities that are going through what we went through last year. We have to collaborate on a much larger level than just even within our own agencies. But we need to collaborate. I mean, I almost say not just multi-jurisdictional, but multi-county. We have to we're going to have to reinvent the way rural government is funded and operates to maximize our abilities, right? Does every county need a grant manager? Or could we share that resource, right? Things of that nature we have to examine. We got to look at those things and say, hey, how can we... So Council of Governments have become a very popular thing, right? And we have just instructed Director Fitzgerald to move into discussions about a contract with the Rogue Valley Council of Governments for our finance and for finance services. Like those things we have to explore. Now, if we had a Southwestern Council of Governments that helped all of our municipalities, our schools, and the county government and the whole nine, and kept it local, so that money that is coming in as tax dollars stays in our community and pays people here, that would be the home run. How do we get there? Dan, you want to start a Council of Governments nonprofit for us? Because that would be fantastic. But those conversations are going to have to be had. And they're going to have to be had probably sooner rather than later. Yeah. So, I'm glad you brought that up.
Any other questions, guys?
I have one more thing. On that note, we have decided to move to Mammoth.
Congratulations.
As of today, investment came through. We're going to move the food truck business down there and take a shot
Good for you.
down there. So, that being said,
This is your last year?
it's coming up quick. I don't know how fast we're going to be moving, but the wheels are in motion as of about 3 hours ago. So that'll be something we'll need to look at pretty quick as far
Okay.
as finding a replacement for myself.
You got it?
Let's try not to leave before Tuesday.
I'm going to do my best, but I move quick, so.
And if you have to call in, that's fine, but
No,
yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
thank you for that heads up.
yeah. So the wheels are in motion, but yeah, at the very least, I'll be calling in
Okay.
on trying to contribute as much as I can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and if that's it? That's it? Okay, then I'll adjourn this meeting at 2:53 PM. Thank you.